All right, everybody, Lake Station, Strong Towns, community advocate here and educator. I'm going to go through part 4, and this is going to be basically how can all this be cured, how can all this be diverted and avoided. And if you don't know what I mean, go check out my other 4 videos that I've made on Tif Districts. But I kind of wanted to touch on the 3rd video because it kind of touches on something that's really been going on really heavily within our community. And that's them trying to say that they have eminent domain. And here's what I mean. Local authorities or local code enforcement has been rampaging or doing what's called enforcement abuse on residents because of their properties. And what I mean by that is their properties are wanted and they're very prized because it'd be great and perfect for new Tif District development. So if you got a code enforcement and you have some structures in your home and they put on your code enforcement violation, it's blighted. There's a reason, because that word blighted, it actually gives them the ability to gain more support for TIF bonds and being able to hawk, so to speak, in a nice word, more properties for financial funding from the TIF District and the developers. Now, I just want to question, how much has our code enforcement been running around and giving people a lot of code enforcement violations for blighted properties and blighted structures and blighted homes? An awful lot, really, because I've seen a bunch of them. And I only know that because people send me that and I physically have seen them. But let's get back to what I'm talking about, the TIF districts. However, quotes as always, truth is like the sun, you can shut it out for a time, but it ain't gonna go away. And regardless of what people say or do within our community administratively or the commissions board and all these things, in true time, the truth will always remain, and it will show them to be liars. But let's not go there. I'm not calling them a liar. I'm just saying, because, they're struggling with a lot of things, and kind of making a lot of sense now why things are being pushed. And I think in this one, you're going to find a whole lot of weird things that are factual, and you can research yourself. In which, by the way, go online and research TIF districts within your state. The negatives, the pros, the cons, and all those things, and find a good resource like a good college or university, and things like that, that's not biased, that's not organization, that has some research, data, development, and methods behind it that show and prove what's going on. So let me get to it. So we're going back to the basics. So basically, if this sounds familiar, it just may. Your code violations say that your old home or your old property is blighted. Yeah, because I've seen them. I've seen them out there, and our code enforcer been out there has been writing a lot of these, and by golly, you can't read his name, you can't read her name, you can't read a lot of stuff, but they sure do put blighted on there, and that's an important element. Here's why. So, under blighted, auto blight incentives are actually under TIFs. So the more properties that they get that are blighted, the more they are trying to bring in TIFs, when all that is bringing in more debt. That's all it is. If we already have debt within our community, why would you want to bring more? That makes no sense. That's like shooting yourself in the foot and then trying to run a 100-meter dash in an Olympic race. It makes no sense. So basically the intent of the TIF is to help blighted areas and properties. And it fuels things like sprawl and school financials, woes. Get what I'm saying? They're really pushing a lot of school referendum here, and pushing a lot of code enforcement violations for blighted properties because they're prized. And quite frankly, yet it's said by local officials. And as the masterpieces of poison come out, it's promoting commerce and prosperity is what they say, but we're just trying to promote commerce and prosperity in our town because we need more and new taxes. Quite frankly, the old taxes were doing just fine. The problem was you became overpopulated, and then those same taxes didn't work, so taxes and things have got to be adjusted. For more people in town, things have got to be raised. But with TIF districts, when you have a land developer, you have corporations, companies, or even just cronies or people owning businesses that are within that political spectrum, as we've mentioned, and this is actually factual, you can look this stuff up, it's just a political payback within that said group. So nothing's really being done as we've been really seeing around our communities, but somebody's pocketing some money. But I wanted to really focus on promoting commerce and prosperity, because I find this to be very peculiar that within our community that code enforcement is putting a lot of code violations for blighted properties. And I find it odd that they use the wording for TIF districts for promoting commerce and prosperity, because the Times of Northwest Indiana on March 24th of 2024 was an interview with our mayor. And our mayor, it's very peculiar that these words were also used. That they want to make Lake Station attractive to businesses and commerce. And they want some prosperity. Wow, that's kind of weird. You mean that was actually openly out there? Sure was. You go research it for yourself. I just find that to be a really odd element going on. However, TIF and sprawl basically is what it is. It's vacant land, old farmland, old houses are purposely and deliberately targeted for prized properties and prosperity. Remember, property is blighted. They want it. But here's the thing. You need to let voters decide. Okay? The TIF should be actually approved via the referendums, hence the push on the referendums in our town with schools, because there's a lot of maneuvering, a lot of room to really hide money and lie about TIF districts and where all this tax money is going to go, but technically it's supposed to be going specifically on the TIF bonds that are owed. There's a lot of hands in these cookie jars. Community benefits, well, it comes at a great cost, right? Prosperity passed down, basically. Homes are hawked under blighted premise. Community residents are usually harassed, and even to the point to where properties are leaned on down at your local government center. And there's an incentive for them to do this to bring in a TIF district. Like I've mentioned before, TIF districts don't do anything for the next mayor or anybody who comes in. Once you're in them, you're locked in. So there can be actual no new real growth because you're locked into these bonds, and you have to pay these bonds before anything gets paid. And those bonds can be 10, 15, 25, 30, 40 years even, and they can be more than one TIF bond. But hey, if it helps pay for things like the kids in the schools, so be it, right? And again, like I've mentioned, Indiana State has code and laws on the fact that it's now been changed, that they have to put on the city website the times, the dates, the whereabouts of every council meeting and any referendums and things like that. They have to put it on there. There's code and laws on this. They can't hide it. And these specifically on TIFs have to also be open to the public. We have to know about it, and they have to give the information fully and wholly. But unfortunately, they're not going to give the whole full truth, which is why transparency and accountability within this is very important. So I really hope that with TIF districts, everybody's kind of really wakened up a little bit within Lake Station community, and they are finding a lot of these things going on. It kind of starts to gather together this little Rubik's Cube of trouble. And I'm telling you right now, if we get a TIF district and we get TIF bonds, we're in trouble. It's just going to be really bad. And not just for us, but the generations after us and generations after them. It could take years to pay these debts off. I'm a Lake Station community advocate and educator. Go check out Lake Station Strong Towns Collective on Facebook, Lake Station Strong Local Conversations, soon to be a website and a YouTube. Be the change you want to be the change you want to see, and be an eagle, don't be a crow. Challenge the status quo, because if you don't, you never know. And until next time.